Hi everyone, it's Dr. Chris Moore, the Programme Lead for the undergraduate degree in Biomedical Sciences at UWE Bristol, and here today to give you a run through of a new possibility in a way of creating a student community as well as an information point, and also possibly of helping you organize your department or your group or your services business as more of a one-stop collaborative shop. So why am I looking into this? Well, basically, I've been tinkering with SharePoint recently. I've always been a big, driver of using Microsoft Teams to get a lot of work done, trying to get people on board with that. And I tried this past academic year of replicating the course environment for my program, not the module level, but the course environment for my program in Microsoft Teams to provide a way for students to start discussions, ask and answer questions, a way of creating channels for Q&A, employability information, general chat, that sort of stuff, to give them the opportunity to have a voice and to ask questions that others may be thinking or on behalf of others, a way to feedback to reps and a way for other staff to be involved in much the same way that we often use course landing pages in virtual learning environments. Now at UWE we use Blackboard as our virtual learning environment, and we have module pages and everything sort of linked in terms of assessments and learning material, and that all goes through to the student record system. Makes a lot of sense. But we also have program pages, and program pages are basically landing pages for students to get to where there's a bunch of information for them, but they don't really need to interact with it. It's more of a way of the program leader announcing things, telling them things, giving them handbooks and module choice advice, timetabling advice, that sort of stuff. But they don't have to download learning materials, submit assessments, and collect marks in that space. And one thing that Blackboard doesn't do very well is cohort community. There are discussion boards, but students don't use them too much. And the whole thing with virtual learning environments in general is that you don't really use them after you leave university. But what you do use, wherever you go, is something within Microsoft Office. The other thing that I was tinkering with while doing this was looking at how departments, services, groups, committees go about doing work and how everything feels very discombobulated. You have different people with different roles and they all need to get their information out. And sometimes it's for information, sometimes it's an action for people to do things. Now, the people themselves bring everything together, but in an increasingly online way of working, we're losing a lot of that connectivity. And it means that you go to different places for different things within the same job. And so I was trying to think of a way of helping out with that sort of thing and creating one place where staff can go to get things done. And the two things actually merge together. So with that, let's jump on and show you what I've been tinkering with. Okay, so this is the first thing that I'm going to show you here. This is a Microsoft team. Okay, I'm going to show you the staff level one first. And so what I did was create a brand new team. And within that, I named it Applied Science Online, gave it a description and a little logo thing of anything you want, really. And then I started out just by creating a general channel, okay? Because all I was looking to do was, what's the best place to create a one-stop shop? Now, Teams is great for discussions, posts and threads, continuing conversation, hosting meetings, that sort of stuff. You've, of course, got the Files tab up at the top, and so you can put important documents. But more and more, I see staff using Teams as actually document repositories and a means of just notifying people that there's a new document, and then occasionally having a meeting in that space. Now, you can create a meeting in your own calendar. You can also create a meeting within a channel, and people have different challenges in terms of whether they are accidentally inviting everyone in an area or whether they're inviting select few people. And so we tend to jump in and out of Teams when it comes to meetings. That means that recordings go in different places and all this sort of stuff as well. So what I wanted to do with this is, instead of just create a Teams site with, or a Microsoft team with a lot of notifications, is I wanted to build something that had all the information that staff need and basically operate a bit like an internet page, but also a bit like an intranet site. And so what I did was in the general channel, because this will apply to everybody no matter where you are. And you can see over here that I have created a series of additional channels. The reason for these being these are the core areas of departmental business, okay? The academic facing side more than the corporate facing side, but different subject groups, which are clusters of staff. But of course, creating a team for every cluster of staff doesn't mean that everyone's getting the right information. Sometimes the information will overlap and you have to post to multiple teams, or we resort to email communications to send out big bursts of information. And so by having everyone have their own channel where messages, discussions, posts, opportunities specific to those staff can exist, the general channel and anywhere really creates a degree of transparency so that we're working actually as a department rather than a series of different discipline subject groups, or even worse, individuals jumping around based on where we need to look. And then, of course, we have things like quality and research. Now, as I mentioned, I didn't want to just stick with the threads in the conversation. So what I did was go to the add up at the ribbon. And this is a way of adding a whole bunch of different apps that are available through SharePoint. Now, you're best using the ones that are available at the top because you can be sure that your organization has enabled them. And all I did was click on SharePoint to add a tab to the SharePoint site that already comes built in to every Microsoft team. You have to remember with Microsoft Teams that it's really a front page interface to a SharePoint site. Everything sits behind it on a SharePoint backbone. And so it's important to realize this so that when you are storing documents, organizing documents, and even when you're creating tasks and things to do, that's really where everything's happening in the background. And so what I wanted to do here was create the conversational community elements and the meeting hosting spaces within the team. But for the information, we want to jump people out to a more interactive and visual space to do that. And that's where this Microsoft team comes in. So if we click out of here and go back to the site itself, now you'll notice that by clicking on the site, it will open in the main Teams window, okay? And this is what it looks like. But because I wanted to come from the angle of visiting the website as your initial launching point to get the information you need to do the actions that you need to do, and then come to the team for the conversation side by going to the posts, and for meetings and things, what I would actually encourage anyone using this sort of thing to do is by all means use the built-in one in the Teams window, but go to the website and then bookmark that as one of your websites. And then what you'll be greeted with is this. And what we've got here is, in a sense, a web page. You can do this with really anything in Teams. So when you create the SharePoint site, it creates this home space. What you do from there is create any pages or document libraries or news posts that you want to add. And so what I've done to keep it nice and simple is we have this home page here. And then down the side, these are the various other pages that you've got. It's much like clicking the ellipsis on an app to see what other options there are within a website. And so here we've got one for the head of department that I've created so that they can put up news items, keep in touch with everybody there, because of course that's the major joining point of a department where the clusters of staff come together and the strategies and operations and things like that. And then there can be news put up here, and you can see that it's just a starting point here. I've just pasted in a couple of bits and made it look a little bit pretty. But you can go to the various areas within this and see here the person that's responsible for that area is kind of named at the top, and you can add various items into this. I've even got one down here almost for me, which is again just kind of a sandbox, but it has a nice little banner, has my name on it, and it's just a place for me to try and play with various things that you can do within this, such as adding links as small buttons. They can come as lists, embedding PowerPoint video files within the actual website itself. And the way that you change a lot of these things is just clicking up here on the edit button. And you can see here we've now got this republish, discard changes, page details, that sort of stuff. And from here, really, you can add sections that combine multiple elements together. And within sections, you can start to add, by clicking on these pluses, a whole range of different apps and tools and ways of connecting. So for example, I could add image gallery, and I'm planning on uploading a bunch of staff photos, as they're very photographic and take lots of images of birds and wildlife and things like that, so that could be a cycling thing on the main page. You can have file viewers for key files that you want staff to see, access to Microsoft Forms, to Yammer, Twitter feeds. And you saw on the home page that I had access to Twitter feed for our department. And so there it is, a live feed of what's going on there, so that anyone that's not on Twitter can easily see what's going on without having to create an account or otherwise interact with it. You can also include event calendars. So you can add events that are specific to that group, but the beauty of using SharePoint sites is that you can tailor it as to whether it's individual to the user, the visitor, or you can have it select that it displays events from multiple calendars from multiple sites. Not the individual's Outlook calendar as such, but you can add things in for different sites that they belong to, so that there's always stuff there that may be of interest to people within your department, your group, your committee, your service. It also includes things like user feeds, and this pulls up the most recent files to the particular person that's logged in at the time. And of course, they're logged into all these things simultaneously anyway through generally single sign login into their Office 365, and therefore all the apps within that automatically. Now, the other thing that you can do is using this side navigation, you can edit it at any point to change the names of these various pages. You can add new pages. You can edit particular details of the front section and add those same apps and things like that and change the look and the feel. You can go up to settings and you can change all the various site settings and site permissions. So you can really control the environment, give people access to read things without giving away too many access options and things going a little bit awry. Over here, you can either go to your SharePoint start page, to other sites you're involved in. And with any SharePoint site, you can modify it and customize it so that it pulls in information, feeds, news, events from multiple SharePoint sites that you're a member of across your institution or your organization. Now, with this sort of thing, you can include SharePoint lists, which means you can have to-dos, tasks, and activities. I have here that there's an action that will take you out to another SharePoint site, a more central SharePoint site, so that people can upload their field reports for the end of the academic year, so that those can be reviewed by external examiners. It means that people don't need to save bookmarks and things in their own bookmark lists. They don't need to email around or search for emails that have that link in from the quality lead. It's all there in this one-stop shop, and it makes it very much a place for all staff to find what they need, but also a place for staff to contribute by the photos and the tweets, news, research repositories, funding news, anything like that. And by having areas for each major strategic portfolio item, you can have updates on the ref. You can have research governance, things for people to access. If we jump over here to the research area, again, I've got embedded videos, this time from OneDrive recordings, where it's pulling in, and you can even tailor these to pull in recordings that have specific keywords. So in this, I asked the carousel to pull in any videos from multiple sites that had the word CRIB in the name, Centre for Research in Bioscience, so that any talks that had happened, it could bring them along. And you can see that we've got the event calendar there, where the upcoming CRIB talks could take place if you are a member of that different and distinct CRIB Microsoft team. If you're a member of that team, the events there would appear for you in this departmental level SharePoint. So that's some basics of the staff version of things. Now let's jump into the student community and try and give you the briefest overview of what that. Now, the idea for this, it is intended as almost a replacement for the course page on the VLE. Because as I mentioned, it's really just a place for information, but you also want to enable a sense of community. And so there are some distinct differences here. Now, I came at this from a slightly different perspective, because a department, aside from staff coming and going and changing roles and things, tends to stay much the same in terms of what it is and its membership. Occasional staff leave, new staff come in. They're easily added to a Microsoft team. It's a slightly different thing to a student community, because you have hundreds of students, and it's very easy to pull in hundreds of students using directories based on their enrollments and to add them to a team to create a community that way. But at the end of an academic year, you're going to have a cohort of students leaving which could be hundreds. And you're going to have a new cohort of students coming in, which again could be hundreds, which means you would have to manually remove those students and then bulk add in the new ones. Now, the bulk adding in is fine, but the manual removal of the students that are graduating is going to be a bit of a pain. And so some things you want to continue, like this student community. Other things you want to be able to change, like the students that are part of that community. So what I did this time was built a SharePoint site that sits entirely separately, but within the organizational sites. It's not personal to me. I can transfer ownership and add owners to it anytime I want. It's not on my OneDrive for Business or anything. But then I built a Microsoft team, and that is what I will populate with the students. Now, instead of adding the site built into that Microsoft team as their SharePoint site, like I did with the staff one, instead here, I link to the external sort of SharePoint site. Now, what this means is that each academic year, I can delete the Microsoft Teams student community in its entirety. And I can build a new one at the start of the academic year and repopulate it with the current students. Now, of course, I'll have lost all the messages and posts and things, but that's not a problem because the core information lives within the SharePoint site that isn't being deleted, because that's the thing they're always able to springboard to. So in that way, I'm maintaining the information side of things and the feeds that I'll show you in a moment that come direct to them and are individual to them. But I'm recreating the community feel every year, and you're not having new students get confused by old messages, misinformation, that sort of stuff. And hopefully we'll find that that's beneficial. So let's take a look at some of the things that are in there. Well, we've got the same banner up here, and I've kept it same kind of visuals, really. Again, you've got the building new pages and spaces and plans and that sort of stuff. This is the same sort of thing as the website with the edit function here. You can choose various things. This is called a hero, and it's a series of pictures, and you can see that they zoom in. They're a little bit dynamic. And because this is a sort of a beta version, a starting point, I have basically turned these pictures into links. So this jumps to the university wayfinding app or websites. They can type in the room on their timetable they need to go to next. This is information about graduation ceremony. So it's just jumping to different web pages. This will jump to a page within this called course announcements. And so there would be any messages or videos from me. If we scroll a little bit further down, we've got a series of hotkey buttons for key additional resources. The library, accessibility and disability web pages, the My Marks tool within Blackboard, academic regulations, IT support, a link straight to the VLE itself, because remembering that we're maintaining the academic side of the course in the VLE. We're only doing this student community and information facing thing in SharePoint. Booking an appointment with a student advisor, all the things that I get asked about by students a lot. Now, this one I particularly like. It's a page within this SharePoint site, so it's not a link out to anything. And if I were to edit this, you're able to do people as a widget, and then you type in any staff name that you want, and it will pull in their profile and make a little thing to click onto. So here, if I click on my friend John, and it pulls up all his contact information, who he works with, who his manager is, ways to speak to him, send an email, start a chat, any files you may have shared, all those different things so that staff and students can easily find the person that they want to get in contact with. You can click on the banner at any time and be taken back to the home page. And further down the page, we have a collapsible note from me that can take you to my staff profile, and we can make that disappear. News pulled in from, again, multiple sites. So there's the one that I just showed you, and that's pulling it in because it's news for me. It's based on my SharePoint preferences, and the creator of the site can modify these to make it all sites, some sites, select sites, user dependent, so that it's looking at what they're looking at. These are events from the calendar. So I've added these two dates, and if you click on either of those, it brings up specific details, just like a calendar invite would when you expand the details there. They can add it to their personal calendars. It's got the information. It's got a map built into it. Simply because of the location that I typed in for the place when I created the event. I can edit this as the course, as the site owner. But really, it provides a great way of enabling students to choose what they add. You could add training events, and you can do the same thing for staff. So they can add them to their calendar because we're not asking them to check back here all the time. Up at the top here, we have things that, again, for the moment are just links. This will open their Office 365 account in a separate browser tab so they can access their Calendar, email, Word, PowerPoint, OneDrive. This opens a tool called My Engagement that shows them how well they're engaging with the course. And then we can open things like this My Feed. And the My Feed is a page within this site that is really quite specific to the student. So again, the feed brings in their latest file activity, things they've been working on so they can open them again easily, things that have been asked for them to do, so actionable items. And one thing that I've included here is this very basic Microsoft form that's embedded within by doing edit and adding it as a widget. And we can click on the drop down. There are various things to do there. And what I've created that I won't go through now is a series of Power Automate workflows so that if you, for example, if you click on I may need an extension to an assessment. Now, this form would have branching in it to ask further questions if I'd gone into more detail on it. But for this example, when you click on the I need help with an extension for an assessment, what I've told Power Automate to do is to automatically have a chatbot start a Microsoft Teams chat with me individually as the named person in that workflow to say that this student needs help with an assessment. Now, this student's name will have been captured by filling in the form because they're logged into the organization. That then tells me who it is needs my help. Now, I have a range of options there. I've been notified there's a student that needs help, and I've been notified automatically. I can either add them to that specific Teams chat. I can have a video call with them within that Teams chat, call them separately, email them, whatever the communication method you prefer. It's up to you. But you've been notified instantly by an automated workflow, and so students aren't having to wait around a lot. We may only ping them a message and say, I've received your message, I'll be in touch as soon as I can. But it means that we're a bit more there for them. And the other thing here in terms of the community sense of things, in addition to the Teams chat that they can jump to at any point, is a Yammer community. So I created a course community and made it private, and students could ask to join it, or I could add them en masse. And we can start discussions there. It's a bit like, for those that haven't used it, Yammer is a bit like the Facebook of a workplace. It's a social media feed, discussions, questions, send praise to people, all these sorts of things. And you can comment on individual posts and like them, just like in social media. So a question or something someone has asked can continue in its own thread. They shouldn't get lost in the messages, much like a team chat. So there we go. That is about as bare bones whistle-stop tour as I can do of those two ways of doing. They, to my mind, present a huge potential for changing the way that we interact with students, the way that we go about doing work as staff, particularly in an academic setting. And here's the key thing: making things authentic to how workplaces operate, to how whatever careers they go into, they are more than likely to need to use these particular tools within their working environments and to get their jobs done. We can go into lots of detail about notification triggers within SharePoint itself, so that when someone checks out a document, someone gets pinged. When someone completes a form, someone gets pinged. Things get added to web pages. There's all sorts of automated processes we can do within these SharePoint sites, but the main thing with creating them is to make collaborative, community-like working environments where everybody comes together digitally in a time where we are increasingly being separated physically. I hope you found that useful. See you again.